Wait! The instructions say if we finish the game, it'll all go away. We better do it, or Aunt Nora's gonna pitch a fin. Roll!
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the most imaginative movie of the year. Strap yourselves in. We're going on Jumanji.
With Bonnie Hunt, ladies and gentlemen, from the movie Jim Johnny. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the movie Jum Jammy.
Jumanji!
Jumanji, that's right.
Jumanji is the lower valley of, above Bombay. It's a Philippine word meaning the man who runs the metal detector at the airport.
Come on.
Dear God, your wife has Jumanji. A tendency to put on riding boots and nothing else.
Run!
12-year-old Alan Parrish is about to discover an ancient game that will change the course of his life.
Jumanji. You wanna play?
Unaware of Jumanji's awesome power, Alan rolls the dice.
Alan, look. In the jungle, you must wait until the dice read 5 or 8.
What's happening to you?
It's basically the concept that this game is magical, and that once you start, you have to finish it in order to make everything return back to normal. And if you roll a 5 or an 8, you actually enter the game and you're in the jungle world till someone else rolls a 5 or an 8.
Little Alan Parrish. He just vanished about 25 years ago.
26 years later, Judy and Peter find Jumanji just as enticing and just as dangerous.
And they find the game board, and then they start to play. It just feels very ghost-like to Judy and Peter. Don't! Are you Alan Parrish?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What happened to you?
Never shaved before.
And action!
Hello, welcome. Give me the playback on that right away.
Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, Kirsten Dunst, and Bradley Pierce star in Jumanji, a magical adventure that goes far beyond your wildest imagination.
It's not my turn.
Whose turn is it?
Sarah Whittle?
Alan.
26 years ago, you played a game with a little boy down the street.
Whoa, God, sir! Alan, I have spent over 2,000 hours in therapy convincing myself that this doesn't exist.
Sarah has spent a lot of her time indoors since the incident.
Alan spent a lot of time in the jungle.
Since the incident.
So,
We've both gone similar paths in terms of isolation, and psychologically you could look at them as parallel lives in different dimensions. Wow.
Jumanji puts its players in a dangerous double bind. Each roll of the dice packs a punch that takes the players to the brink of disaster, but the destruction won't stop until the game is over.
Run! It's a stampede! It's the game!
you just think, well, what could possibly happen after this? And then something bigger happens.
What is that? Well, there's some parts of the movie that you'll just crack up. And there's some parts where you'll just be going, oh no.
David Alan Grier and Bebe Neuwirth bring their comedic talents to Jumanji.
Oh, my car. The monkeys steal my patrol car. No one knows what to make of anything, you know? I mean, it's really, really strange.
Shooting Jumanji inspired the filmmakers to reach for the magic that lies in the uncharted territory called imagination.
Jurassic Park changed everything as far as effects go. You know, I mean, I think it's a whole new game now.
As we went to meet Joe to do the film, it was the week that Jurassic Park came out. And I think one of the things that really sparked him to the project was realizing that everything that was called for in the script was now visually possible.
Give it a little more strength in the jaw. Without a doubt, I think Jumanji is the biggest interrelation of real-life animals, animatronics, puppets, and computer-generated imagery that's been seen on film.
The award-winning children's book by Chris Van Allsburg presented endless possibilities, which became realities in the hands of the best special effects artists in the business.
I mean, you can't help but see giant spiders and go, thank you, check.
That's right around the time that the earthquake happens.
There's big bats, you know.
That's, of course, after the quicksand.
There are bugs, everything, whoa.
Just after the monsoon. But you know what? My hair looks terrific through the whole thing.
The next round, the setup.
Thank you. Come on down. I'm a schizophrenic. One of us will help you.
I'd like to thank the Embalmers Academy. So sad that Daddy worked at the mill and this is all that's there.
You know, we even get paid for this.
I always feel great on day one. On day 104, I actually was found face down in a ditch and had to be shipped back to San Francisco.
First of all, you have to have someone who has a real understanding of effects. I mean, he storyboards everything, so he knows what he wants from this stuff, because he understands this stuff. He did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
We will finish the game in here.
Van Pelt. You miserable coward! Come back and face me like a man!
And I really wanted to see what it'd be like to be in one of those action-adventure movies. This is it for a little furry boy like myself. This is probably the closest thing I'll get to.
Piece of cake.
We tend to bounce ideas off each other. We'll look at things in terms of what's required from the story to forward the story, and in terms of the special effects that have to occur. The proportions of the house weren't based on proportions of actual Georgian architecture, but in fact on what some of the events that occurred in the house, a space within which fantastic things happen.
Alan, ready?
There is no ready.
They grow much faster than bamboo. Take care or they'll come after you.
Great.
Tell me this isn't happening.
Oh, it is. Stay away from the walls. Don't touch anything. No quick movements.
So this was a first model and was a very useful tool in really deciding how much vining we were going to have and how this whole environment was affected by these vines.
When we first got into it, we didn't realize the magnitude of what it was going to end up being. We had a huge crew in our shop of over 40 people.
Yuri, is that the Pax paint you use?
Yeah.
We tend to look for inspiration wherever we can. In our carnivorous plant pod, the origin of that was kind of interesting. I was dropping my oldest child off at her school, and there in the parking lot was this weird little thorny seed pod.
Action. Okay, and cut.
Jumanji, it doesn't necessarily take you into its world, it brings the world to you. And it lets the world of Jumanji invade your town.
Sarah and the kids, they go into town and they seem to see stampedes of wild animals running through the town.
We're trying to dodge all these people and get through town when we realize that we've created all of this. Elephants running down the street, and you name it, it's there in the town.
The creative minds at Industrial Light and Magic specialize in letting their imaginations run wild. They turn back time to bring dinosaurs to life in Jurassic Park, but the computer-generated images required for Jumanji were far more complex.
It's so complicated and dense, you can't really see very much unless you zoom in. Funnest part of the project, always throwing stuff back and forth and talking about design, and then getting down to, okay, let's storyboard this stuff out and see what we really have. And when we put it all down, we came back here and looked at it and we said, wow, all these different sequences. It was pretty daunting from the start.
As strange as it is, it's still so much fun because in each scene, there's some effect.
Well, it's like the old, if you want to make it like the old movies. How many Kemosabe? Many buffalo, come.
When you read the story, you immediately realize there is a gigantic and awesome production challenge in this film, which is you have to create a stampede inside a house.
With dinosaurs, we had a little leeway because people didn't know how they moved and didn't know what they really looked like. But people can go to the zoo, so, you know, it makes your job that much harder.
Run, you fools!
There's a full animal stampede. It was an open call that day, so we had elephants, rhinos, zebras, a couple of wombats. Warthogs were late. They had a 5 o'clock call, but they came at 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, Africa on Ice is proud to present. Look, it's Banzai Africa.
You know, it's always when you're doing those things where something could go wrong that you have to be careful.
You're great.
I'm fast. I can't believe we did that.
Go it again.
We'd shoot the side with Robin running out of the library, and then the effects guys actually built a big steel rhino and rammed it through that wall for us.
When you see the blue horn, that means it's right. Sound speed, Mark.
Wall, action! And that was the rhino's lasha.
We take those 2 shots, and we end up compositing Robin in the shot and keep him right in there in the middle of the action.
Wow.
Wow.
There haven't been that many effects where you have to hallucinate it or actually imagine it. There's just a few. You find yourself going home, how was work? I don't know.
I always have this terrible fear that I'm reacting to something small, and then when it's actually put into the film, it'll be a giant, you know, gargantuan thing, and I'll be going, oh.
It wasn't that hard to act when you're really scared and you have to pretend you're scared.
I would come to work and go, what happens to me this time? Oh, the vine snatches my car. Okay, great, action.
Wait!
Now what?
Stop! Wait, stop!
Is there a problem, ma'am?
Oh, can I have a ride home?
Where do you live?
Jefferson Street, the old parish place.
Do you have children?
Oh my God, what happened?
Now they've got this whole set they built, and it all shakes because of an earthquake, and the whole floor splits.
This is a complete model that we used to really accurately plan the shots in the attic scene, and the earthquake scene especially. It'll look much better in the film.
Rock climbing for the totally inept. I think I'm omniphobic, which sounds like you're afraid of just the magazine. But no, what are you afraid of? Science magazines that are overly glossy. I'm afraid of heights, spiders, rhinoceros stampedes, but I would think heights more than anything. That's probably the worst. Hey, that's not a good idea.
I've done a lot of my own stunts, which has been exciting. But whenever you see Sarah on the screen, she's a little heavy. That's not me. It's body double.
That was one of the more difficult sequences to design. Jim had a great idea that basically saved the day. He said, why don't we just take the set we have when we're finished with it and cut it in half?
I'll be off camera to help you.
No, stay.
Stay?
Stay,
Okay.
yeah. It's more interesting for the folks at home to have you with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just be here as security.
And by the folks at home, I mean my own family.
We're gonna go in here, together, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna finish that game. No matter what. Suddenly I feel right at home.
every month at the quarter moon, there'll be a monsoon in your lagoon. Monsoon. Well, at least we're inside.
Yeah, right.
I think the stuff with the monsoon, that was the most exciting thing to shoot. I mean, it was one of those things where you didn't have to act a lot.
We have built this amazing thing. Please, join us. Come on.
We had to build a house that we could flood with 7 feet of water for the monsoon sequence.
Look at the good side. It's a fixer-upper.
Oh, the
They're the
wallpaper
most-
just looks so different in the book on the sample. But the basement doesn't flood.
The crocodile had to work in water, and that's something that really hasn't been done yet with an animatronic creature to actually put it in the water and still expect it to splash around with Robin Williams riding on its back.
It's also great when you actually do a good take, and Joe did. Good boy. And the stick, and we jumped over the stick. Sometimes I got a little bit, I didn't know why they had to do that. After a good take, when I did the hoop thing, then I realized I'd done well. Good take, Jumanji.
The table! Peter! Get out of the water!
Not a fun thing when that suitcase comes to life. No.
It's my fault, isn't it?
You always say I cheat.
Bonnie.
Exit, stage left, even.
Here we go. Oh, no.
Billy, I'm in place.
Act natural.
Highway 9 and proceeded east up Fulton Street.
Hey!
Hide the game.
I don't believe this. Every time there's trouble, I run into you.
Me? I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, I'm taking you in.
It has certain elements of like It's a Wonderful Life in the sense of if you can get through it all, you might be able to change it back and do it right again.
What is this about? I know you know.
You wouldn't believe me even if I told you, Carl.
Wait a minute. How did you know my name is Carl?
I know a lot more than that.
It's me, Alan.
He got to come back and discover what the world is because he wasn't around anymore.
Jumanji, which is a French word meaning you change. I changed from the beginning being a boy who is very much afraid of everything to becoming a man who is very much afraid of everything. And part of his growing up is to deal with it.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. And now, we're all gonna sit down and we're gonna finish it. You think monkeys, mosquitoes, and lions are bad? That's just the beginning. I've seen things you've only seen in your nightmares. Things you can't even imagine. Things you can't even see.
As it gets closer to the end, things get more bizarre and much more outrageous.
The minute the dice are in one of our hands and we're about to roll them, we know that something is waiting for us in this game.
Because you don't know what's going to happen next. It's that whole thing of every time you roll the dice,
You just kind of close your eyes and hold your breath to see what's going to happen, and it's usually much bigger than anything you ever anticipated.
Ready? Yeah.
We get a call from Joe and Larry Franco, the producer. They say, across the board, he said, all these animals want to have something a little magical, fantasy side to them, as well as the reality.
Have more character than a real animal would in the zoo or in wildlife. They had to look real. The audience had to believe they were real animals, but they were supposed to be a little bit of a heightened sense of character to them. When you look at the lion, the audience may not initially pick up on the fact that there's something crazy and ferocious about this lion. The pelican is much more curious than any regular pelican would be here. The bat is very unrelenting in trying to get at this little girl. The plant pot, of course, just by the nature that it can move, makes it a much more real threat. Even the spiders that come into our world are much bigger and very strong and very tenacious. The crocodiles are much meaner and much more cunning than any crocodile that we've ever seen in Wild Kingdom. When we were creating the animals, our beginning was researching real animals. We started with a lot of photographs. And from there, we went through a lot of sketches to come up with the exact character for each animal that we wanted to kind of revitalize it with. There's a great deal of the animals in Jumanji that we've created completely as animatronics, as puppets. There are some animals that have a computer-generated counterpart, and that is where ILM has come in to do all of that visualization. There are also several animal characters that ILM has done completely on their own that have no animatronic counterparts.
Wow, you know, we have mosquitoes, bats, lions, quicksand, stampede, monkeys, all these different sequences.
Without a doubt, I think Jumanji is probably, to date, is the biggest interrelation of real-life animals, animatronics, puppets, and computer-generated imagery that's been seen on film. The character of the lion in the film is a pretty important character. It's one of the first characters that are conjured up out of this game.
After our first initial meetings with the lion, he said, well, we want to build an animatronic lion, so you guys are not only have the problem of matching to a real lion, but you're also going to have to match to an animatronic lion.
We had a fully animatronic creature for all the hero stuff, all the facial articulation. Joe said from the very beginning, I just wanted it to look mad.
To me, this is exactly what the Jumanji lion should be. It's just wild. It may be a little bit too stylized. We have to...
Well, why don't we do this? I mean, look at the strength that is in here. We could certainly transpose that over here without affecting the expression. I think this area here is where we're getting all the expression.
I agree.
Well, here's one of the maquettes that have been prepped. I mean, look at this in
Yeah. And ILM will ultimately be using this as their reference to create their computer-generated lion. So whatever we send them, we just need to know that we're all working off the same model.
Are you ready? Let's do it. 2, 3.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Okay.
Inside here, you can see where, when I was in the suit, I was wearing this rig over my head, and what this allowed me to do, this whole monitor here has a built-in video screen, so I was able to get a picture from what the camera was seeing. I was also able to communicate through a microphone and hear on this speaker when Alec would be directing me from outside of the suit.
Go for it. Great, okay.
Action.
So we come back and huddle here and say, okay, what's our big problem here? We need to have the lion guy solving the long hair problem and how that mane's going to move cleaner and less messed up.
We had to solve a lot of technical problems with the hair, like trying to make our hair match the animatronic lion. It's about 1.5 million hairs or something like that. So there has to, all those things have to work together, and that was a big technical problem.
The way animatronics develop is just like us. They're scrambling from the start. We don't really know what this lion looks like until they finally get to their first day of shooting and get there.
Well, this is our beauty shot of the lion. There are about 7 or 8 shots where he appears in the movie, but he doesn't ever appear for as long or close up as this shot.
We had this seed pod when we were designing it. Alec had found a seed pod actually at his daughter's science fair at school and brought it into the shop. And it was just so foreign looking, and we thought this would be a great touch. You know, it was real and it was organic. And we kind of duplicated that look and put it on here. But everything's based on realism. All the plant work was based on research that we had done on tropical plants, and we sat and looked through books with Joe to pick out some tropical plants that we thought would really look fitting for this part. It just looks better when it's all shiny and glossy, you know, the light's kicked. And it also needs to be kind of lubricated so that when it's opening, the petals don't stick together. We also throw a lot of slime into it, so it's just real viscous and, you know, creepy looking. What's that? That's probably far enough for now. I thought over here. There's the mechanical one.
I tell you what, let's separate this into 2 shots. Okay. The first shot is just going to go from where we are, as wide as we are now. The pod comes out and starts undulating, and we start, on my cue, we start going toward it, okay? And we'll just go all the way in until it's touching us, okay? That'll be the first shot. All right, Alec, you all set? Okay. Okay.
Sing.
Okay. Okay, here we go, and action. Okay. And in. Here we come.
Got to get the nose up on that plant.
And cut.
I'll be right back. Oh my God.
Originally, the monkeys were supposed to be fairly human-like, and then gradually through the course of development, the monkeys started getting more and more ape-like in some way. We took reference trips down to the San Francisco Zoo to look at the look and the fur and the motion of a whole bunch of different species of monkeys, and then we finally ended up with something that's sort of unlike any monkey that actually exists anywhere in the known universe. So yeah, it was about a 3-month process to develop the look of the monkeys with a lot of incremental changes. And then we also had Jeff Campbell and his group doing modeling. You saw the models, the maquettes that were done by Richard Miller's group over in the model shop.
He wants to try a little different ear position. I know we had it higher than this before. I think we're closing in on it overall. I just think maybe without the hair, we're getting the impression that he's a little bit, he's got the old alfalfa ears sticking out there. Right. So we can just crush him in a little bit.
Concurrently with the modeling, we had another group of people doing the paint job. You view the model in 3D while you do your painting. The movements of the monkeys are pretty much done entirely by hand by the animators, and then from that they would work with sort of stick figures, or like the skeletons of the figures and get them to move around. We had a bunch of software written up, most important of which was the fur rendering software, and that's the software that actually puts the individual hairs onto the monkey skin. The opening shot in the kitchen is where we sort of present the audience with so much eye candy that they can't possibly take it all in. The kitchen is obviously real. The monkeys are obviously not real, but the props and things that they're throwing around, some of them are real and some of them are computer generated.
We'll take care of anything that the monkeys are interacting with for a long time. We'll model in CG, but anything they knock off, we'll do some practical stunts there because it's always easier to get it in the camera if you can.
It looks like a room with a whole bunch of things sort of floating in air. There's a few strings and poles and stuff which we then have to erase with a digital paint system. And then, my goodness, what's going on here?
It was important to Joe to tie in Robin and the kids to what was going on. So we did most of those with splits where we'd shoot the side with Robin running back and forgetting the game, picking up the game board and running out of the library with nothing going on. And then we'd shoot the side of the wall actually blowing up where the effects guys actually built a big steel rhino and rammed it through that wall for us.
And set. Ready? And action.
You and Billy Jessup, yeah, you swapped spit, didn't you?
You didn't even kiss me.
Oh, yeah,
please.
right.
Didn't even. We were sitting like this far apart.
You're the one who's immature. Oh, Sarah, you are not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah,
Really?
I get my point across, don't I?
Feel that?
What?
Listen. And action.
Set.
Stampede. Stampede! 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 Run! Run! Escape!
Give me the playback on that right away.
So in the end, we end up taking the shot of Robin, going back, getting the game board and running out, and the steel rhino coming through the wall. We take those two shots, and we end up compositing Robin in the shot and mat him over where all the books are flying and all hell breaks loose.
Actually, there's two houses. One is a large three-story set that is filmed in several different stages. It's filmed as the house that we start off in, and then it's filmed as the final home, and then it's filmed as a space within which the game occurs. And that is the house of the imagination that goes through all its various changes and permutations as a result of the game. It has vines taking over it, it has animals stampeding through it, it's flooded, it has lions roaming through it, it turns into quicksand. And all of these things are designed into the house in a modular fashion to allow the shooting company to shoot them and then go to other layers of the house. These are preliminary keyframe illustrations. We start off just by illustrating them, and this shows the amount of destruction after the animals stampede down it. We have modular panels that are removable so that the real intact floor will be removed, and then we'll throw a collapsed and destroyed floor in there. Same thing here. This is everyone trying to race up the staircase and the flood comes down. These illustrations were done before casting, so they're not accurate representations of the actors, but they begin to help us look at the level of vinage and the way that we want to develop the vines. Joe and I had to arrive at some sort of agreement on what these vines actually did to the house. This was the first model that we constructed and started exploring the possibilities of creating this new world that Jumanji, in fact, created inside the house. The vines, when we first see them, are rather like fast-growing ivy, and the vines are enormous and growing all over. And they've grown up through the second floor, and the whole thing is very organic. Ground floor set had to be built in a large tank that was built out at the University of British Columbia for wave research. The construction has to be especially solid because we have not only 6.5 feet of water in the set, but because the currents and the winds that are generated as a result of the monsoon are considerable. And the alligator or crocodile, which in fact attacks them in this hallway, is 15 feet long, and a 15-foot crocodile moving through water generates quite a lot of current. So this is a complete model that we used to really accurately plan the shots in the attic scene. We also used it to see what elements, since we're dealing with a fairly oddly shaped set, it's a good tool for discussion with the director of photography, where he wants to put lights, where he might like to have wild walls, where crew's going to be, and so it's very useful that way. And then finally, in terms of the earthquake, we used it to show where the crack was going to be and how the attic was going to rend itself. And then the finale, and that is simply taking a chainsaw to the existing set and ripping it apart. Truly, just tearing it apart. That's the final stage. Hopefully, no more shooting in there. It's done.